Hey, thanks for joining me. Let's look at the last issues of Wolverine that Marc Silvestri drew. I've been going through, I'll go through anything that Silvestri has drawn and look at it and just marvel at it and never get bored or sick and tired of it at all. And I was actually kind of sitting around recently thinking, like, okay, I knew he drew Wolverine, but I'm like, where did he end? Like, what? I was like, I actually didn't know the specific issue that he did that was the last one. Like a lot of us nerds out there, we know like what issue that McFarlane, the last one McFarlane did on Spider-Man is that, crossover issue with X-Force before he, stopped working for Marvel and eventually wound up at Image. When Jim Lee stopped drawing X-Men, we know when Liefeld stopped drawing X-Force. But I'm like, I don't know when Silvestri got done doing Wolverine. And so I had to go looking up, and I'm like, oh, okay, it's these three issues. And they're all kind of a single story. Get this thing adjusted to the right height here. And what was interesting to me the most interesting thing I was kind of curious to kind of identify in these is if I could see any kind of element that showed the transition of Silvestri's art from the way that he drew Wolverine and even X-Men when he was being inked by Dan Green to the way that his art would look in Cyberforce when he jumped over to Image. And for anybody who follows Silvestri's work, it's a massive difference. And I've said this before that Silvestri has said he does not like a lot of his early 90s work because he was just trying to do a Jim Lee thing. And that's very obvious in his work once he jumps over to Cyberforce. There's a little bit of like connective tissue I can see personally a little bit in Cyberforce #1 where it still kind of has this old school vibe, the Marvel Comics Marc Silvestri. But pretty quickly, a couple issues into his Cyberforce run, the original miniseries and then back onto the regular series, his art becomes something very different. Now it's still great because it's Marc Silvestri, so it's always good. But he had a distinctive, specific look in this era, and this is the end of that era, and he jumps over to Image right after issue 57 here. So I was curious if it would look like anything that we could identify visually to see the direction that he's going to go with his work. The last issues I looked at with Wolverine, issue 54, I'm pretty sure was like a fill-in issue, some other artist where Wolverine fights Shatterstar. And I've got it somewhere. And at the time, I wanted to see Wolverine run into Shatterstar. I wanted to see him fight because Shatterstar was the badass of X-Force. And I just remember thinking the art was so fucking unbelievably terrible. I do have it somewhere. I'm going to have to see if I can't dig it up. But before that was like this whole Mojo World, the Crunch Conundrum, it was called. Again, Silvestri's art always looks great. But for God's sakes, I've said this before, I hate anything Mojo. Mojo's just the worst. But so there was the Crunch Conundrum that was going on, then a fill-in issue of 54, and now we got 55, 56, 57. Again, this is the end of Silvestri's run. And I thought about breaking these up into separate videos. Maybe I'll regret later that I don't. But I figured I'm just going to dig through them all because I wanted to get to this one specifically. This is the one I wanted to talk about the most. But to do that, we got to get through these. And to do that, if I break them up into separate videos, I'm just, oh, fuck it. Let's just look at them all. A lot of people will occasionally ask me, who's my favorite artist? And it's hard for me to ever nail it down to one guy. But one of the absolute top contenders is absolutely Marc Silvestri. Even Marc Silvestri running on fumes and at 50% power is better than so many others, like almost anybody else, in my humble opinion. So, now I'm not saying that's what his work is here, but on the, this is, issue 55, it doesn't say it on that one, but on these two, 56, 57, on sale twice a month. So Silvestri had to bang these two issues out, both of these books in 1 month. So his art gets a little quicker and rougher, and it becomes kind of obvious in the end of this one. But this one right here, this still, to me, feels like mostly classic, Silvestri work. I know that he talked about in interviews that he was getting kind of burned out of comics. He'd kind of done everything. He got to draw X-Men. He got to draw Wolverine. As from what I understand, he was pretty financially well off. Like he was making a solid nut with his Marvel work, getting paid pretty damn well. All these artists, these top tier artists in this era, were getting paid really well. But he was saying how he's kind of getting bored of comics, and he was thinking about getting out of comics before Image comes along and gives him a new opportunity to kind of own his own characters, own his own business, and really, really rake in some cash. So I was kind of curious to look at this, and can I see a Silvestri waning in his interest? And I gotta say, I don't see it. I just feel like he's so naturally good no matter what he's doing. His natural kind of art style. If anyone were to have any kind of critique of his art, I couldn't imagine what it would be, just beyond you just kind of personally don't like it. But man, do I just love this organic, simple style coupled with Dan Green's inks. It just works so perfect. The story is I was talking about the Crunch Conundrum. They were in the Mojo verse and they wrapped everything up, but somehow at the end of that, Jubilee and Wolverine's motorcycle, everyone got teleported back to Earth, and for some reason, Jubilee ended up in Japan with Wolverine's motorcycle. So now Wolverine has to go and get her, and for some reason, Gambit's tagging along. Why? Because Gambit was popular and he's awesome, and that's what we want to see. So, of course, there's kind of a little bit of humor. They're running Wolverine through a metal detector, and they're like, what is going on? Why are you going off like you're just packing so much goddamn metal? What is the story here? So it's kind of a funny idea. Again, Larry Hama script, Marc Silvestri pencils, Dan Green inks, kind of the classic crew. Part of me feels like there's a little bit of a heavier hand on the inking. I don't know if that's the right term to use. It's not a negative on Dan Green. It never is. It's looking a little different. Silvestri is, I think, leaning a little bit more into some bigger imagery because that's the type of stuff that people are responding to, which, Lee and Liefeld kind of started really popularizing, and then Silvestri, he's admitted that he started adopting that style. So I'm wondering if there's kind of an element to that going on here. But the story, like, they get Wolverine to strip down to his almost bare ass. He's just in his little white underwear with little red X's, and he's still wearing his cowboy boots. And they're trying to what the hell? We've stripped you down to your bare ass. Where's all this metal? So he walks over to a metal detector and slaps his arms down so you could see his metal bones and his claws in his arm there. Great. I love the Silvestri anatomy everywhere. In this short, again, appropriately short, super thick, muscular superhero, like Short King Wolverine. Remember how they made fun of that in that last Daredevil, Deadpool Wolverine movie? And I gotta say, like, certain comic book elements just don't translate over to movies. And making Wolverine comic accurate short, I don't think it works. I don't think it works. I have no problem with Hugh Jackman being however big. He's like 6'3" or some shit. Yes, he's really huge. It's not exactly right. They could have gone with someone a little shorter, but I mean, Hugh Jackman's portrayal to me was perfect. But I don't think having a short little guy like this on screen would kind of translate the same. Anyway, they decide to send him along, and they're telling him that he's not flying. So somehow, they're not going to get on the plane. The security guard's not letting them, and Gambit suggests that they get in contact with Nick Fury. He'll settle this right up. Now we cut to a mysterious figure in a dark box. It might be a little hard to kind of tell what you're looking at. There's just a bunch of tubes and shit and some kind of skull-ish thing. But there's a communication program voiceover talking about, hey, this thing needs to boot up. Get ready. It's your time. And they mention Pierce, Donald Pierce, the robot guy from the Hellfire Club. I'm guessing they're talking about. I'm guessing that this character is someone who's been introduced before, and I don't know if I've read those issues where this girl has been introduced, and there's a voice on the phone saying, "Hey, it's time for you to wake your happy ass up. Your time has come. Let's get you ready to go." And then we cut to a scene that's just like straight out of the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark, like the big warehouse with a bunch of crates. This guy's like, "Hey, we got that giant crate, that we've had for long-term storage. It's really long, really big, kind of odd. It wants to be shipped out now, and we need to send it to it's going to Tokyo. Whatever this is, which is the girl, the mysterious figure on the previous page, that's her. She's in a box. Cut to Tokyo, and there's Jubilee. Like I said, she ended up here. She ended up from the Mojo world. She ended up transported to Tokyo. Now she's in jail. There's a bunch of thugs there who want to start giving her shit. They're going to steal from her. And so Jubilee, throws out her powers to kind of shock them. And so suddenly one of the gangster girls tells the cops here, like, hey, I need to get a message out. I got to contact somebody. The cop's like, fuck you, who cares? So everyone wants to get contacted. And the girl shows a little tattoo on her. She says, yeah, but I'm trying to contact the Hand, the ninja. So that would be awesome. Eventually, Wolverine and Gambit, they made it to Japan. Here they are. They're like, hey, do you know how to call a taxi? He's like, sure. Takashi Yando Kudasai. Calls a taxi, a bunch of cars show up, or one was coming, but then another guy just jumps right up in front to kind of jump in line. And when the other taxi guy who was getting there first shows up to give him some shit, new taxi guy just punches him in the face for some reason. There's probably a reason for this, probably related to the Hand. But they're like, hey, taxi driver, you're going the wrong direction, dude. And the guy's like, oh, please to sit back. This shortcut very fast, much saving of time. Hey, I'm just reading the text box there. Just because I throw in a weird accent doesn't make it, culturally insensitive. Anyway, the car goes to a car wash. And then while they're in there, suddenly, and this is something that made me kind of stop and go, okay, this is kind of interesting. Because again, the Hand, they're involved, and Wolverine and Gambit have obviously been abducted, even though they kind of think something's up. But then you get red-cloaked cyber ninjas. And I'm like, I don't know if I've seen fuckers like this before. I'm not saying these things don't exist, but I kind of like it. And it's very Cyber Force. So I wonder if Silvestri designed these. Again, hand ninjas, but the cloaks, the cloaks or whatever, the clothes are red, but they've got cybernetic, like either sheathing or actual arms. I don't know. I don't care. I think they're pretty freaking neat. They come along, stab through the roof, and they're like, holy shit, we've been set up. So Wolverine pops his claws and proceeds to shred the roof off of the taxi cab. And there's a little bit of like goofy dialogue. I don't hate it, but it's a little goofy. Gambit says, we've been set up. And Wolverine says, well, excuse me while I unset us up. And so Wolverine says, I'm opening with a pair of trays, Gambit. That's 6 claws to you. Gambit says, I call. Wolverine says, what you holding? And while Gambit throws a bunch of his cards and explosions to take out cyber ninjas, he says, full house, ace is over. And then Wolverine says, blows them away. Gambit says, they from the hand? And Wolverine says, they sure ain't from the foot. I mean, okay. Okay, guys. Anyway, so now they're with the guy who abducted him in the taxi. Gambit says, you don't be needing this, my friend. And Wolverine says, like we was saying, take us to the police station and put your flip-flop to the metal. And the taxi driver says, yes, sir, Mr. Gaijin. And Wolverine says, that's Gaijin-sama to you, bub. So it's all kind of silly dialogue. It works. But as the taxi drives away, there's a fancy car following behind him. And there's a voice saying, I have it on good authority that Logan is here in Japan. And in the car, it's Matsuo Surayaba. I mean, I'm reading the name. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it correctly. It's just this, like, hand ninja leader guy that I don't know if he ever was anything that was really... I don't know what ever come of the character, if there's ever anything that was actually really interesting, besides kind of like a Yakuza hand ninja gangster leader. But he showed up often and was kind of a threat. And he says on the phone that you will address me as Lord, insolent wench. And so it cuts to, as head of the clan Yashida calls no mere ninja monger Lord. So this is Mariko, Wolverine's beloved, the girl that he fell in love with in the comics a long time ago. And, they weren't able to form a relationship because of her obligations and blah, blah, blah. There's always a reason to have love interrupted. But she's in Japan, so Wolverine's got to run into her. But she's talking about how, there's business dealings between Clan Yashida and the Hand, and if they end up fighting, it's going to suck for everybody. Great shot of these guys with all the tattoos, swords on their back, big poofy pants, great drawings, great shot of Mariko's face. It's that kind of classic, very quick drawn and quickly inked kind of art style that Dan Green does over Silvestri's pencils that always looks so great. Always been a big fan of that. So that's Mariko. She's still talking about they're still struggling with the Hand over here. This guy's like that dog eater Matsuo. He has other reasons for wanting the life of Logan. Meanwhile, the Hand has the Yashidas living in a state of siege, trying to force us into their thrall. If Logan is really here, he would be a powerful ally. And Mariko says that is not for you to say. I cannot accept the love or help of Logan until I have restored the honor of our clan. So, they're setting up why they can't be together. Meanwhile, we cut back to the cyber ninjas who were in the car wash. They come out dripping wet, and they're coming up to their master, Matsuo. And they say, we have failed you, Lord. Is it your wish that we should spill our entrails in atonement? And Matsuo says, my displeasure is not such that I will require your disembowelment yet. So they're like, all right, we need to continue with our plan here. And they mention here, they say, I trust you dispatched the poisoner to take care of the brat. And they're like, yes, we have. That is what we're going to do. That part of the plan is in place. And so what they're talking about is Jubilee, who is in jail. Now she's getting taken out of jail, thrown in the back of a van. And there's a girl in the back with sunglasses on. And Jubilee's like, oh, well, who the hell are you? I don't know who you are. Where am I going? What are you guys doing with me? And so the police van takes off just as the cab shows up with Wolverine and Gambit. And I guess Wolverine can't smell Jubilee. His hypersenses, maybe they kind of work whenever the script doesn't want her or him to smell the appropriate things. But the point is that they just barely missed each other. So Wolverine jumps out. Come on, we got to get Jubilee. We got to collect her up. He gets inside and they're like, what the fuck? She's gone? What do you mean? You sent her where? What are you guys doing? And he's like, well, what about my bike? How can I get my bike? And they're like, yeah, there's a bunch of import duties on, fees on your motorcycle that you need to pay if you want your fucking motorcycle back. Meanwhile, Gambit's over here flirting with a couple of, I don't know, fucking Japanese hookers. He's like, have you girls been bad? And they say, that's when we're good. I'm like, all right. So they're like, hey, come on. They're like, bring Mr. Logan to the evidence room and confront him with proof of his... What the fuck does that say? I'm trying to read that text box. What does that say? One of the letters is goofed up. With proof of his ignominious perfidy? Perfidy? What the fuck? I don't know what I'm reading. Me English no good. Anyway, hey, come look at our evidence room. We're going to show you some other shit. Meanwhile, back with Jubilee. The cop van is cruising down the street, and Jubilee's just trying to chat up mysterious girl that's in the back of the van. Remember, Matsuo said, did you dispatch the poisoner to take care of the brat? Here we go. And so Jubilee's chatting her up like, what are you in for? She's like, murder. And Jubilee's like, okay, who'd you kill? And she says, a Yakuza chief, an evil Oyabun named Daikumo, which is in Wolverine number 33. I don't think I've ever read that, so at least I know that this girl's been there before. But she's like, I am sorry to tell you, I am here to kill you. And don't be afraid, my blade is coated with blowfish toxin. The end will be swift. Jubilee's like, fuck that. So she fires a bunch of her fireworks to blind this mysterious person. And the girl lifts her glasses to say, Matsuo had my corneas removed by laser surgery, and the only way that I'll get them back is if I kill you. So she's basically blind, and that's why Jubilee can't stop her. Back with Wolverine, they're like, hey, there's a crate here for you, stupid. You know, you've got a motorcycle here, but there's other shit here for you. So Wolverine's like, I don't know what you're talking about. I've never seen this crate before in my life. And they're like, I don't care what you say, you little short Canadian piece of shit. This is addressed for personal pickup by you. And they're like, okay, so we're going to start cracking it open. And they're like, well, what's in this thing? They're like, well, we x-rayed it. And it says a proto-sentient biological constructs. They're not allowed. And Wolverine says, a cyborg? What the hell? So they crack it open, and the Wolverine's like, I wonder if it's activated. And then suddenly a hand with the blade comes cracking out. And Wolverine's like, well, that answers that. Before we get to see how that plays out, back in the other room with the police headquarters here, where Gambit's still flirting with the Japanese hooker whores. And suddenly, they're not interested in Gambit. They're like, forget about him. Look who just walked in. And holy shit, it's, who the fuck is that? I think this costume design for Sunfire was Whilce Portacio in Uncanny X-Men. Could somebody correct me on that? They wanted to give him a more modern, updated, super badass look with a giant ponytail and a bunch of cybernetic things, as opposed to his weird kind of multicolored costume that he had originally. Great solid figure. He looks kind of short and squat and thick as hell. I love the anatomy and all the tech, but yeah, it's Sunfire. But I want to say that he showed up in Uncanny X-Men when Portacio took over, when Jim Lee went over to draw X-Men and Portacio took over Uncanny X-Men. I think that's a design that he did. And so Sunfire shows up. It's come to my attention that there's a problem here concerning my allies, the X-Men. And Gambit pulls out his staff, brandishes his weapon. He says, it wasn't no problem until you showed up. Who are you? And Sunfire says, I am Sunfire. And Gambit's like, well, they call me Gambit and X-Men for better or worse. And Sunfire's like, you dare brandish your weapon at me? And Gambit's like, not at you, mon ami, at that small army of ninjas creeping up behind you. There's more of the red-cloaked cyber ninjas showing up to kick ass. Back with Jubilee, Murder Girl is trying to stab her. And Jubilee, being kind of a badass, jumps over her, kicks her in the face. But Murder Girl just does a backflip, lands, and is ready to take her out. And Jubilee's saying, if you do kill me, my pal Wolvie will track you down. And she says, I'll just cut him up too. And she says, well, only if you could get past his adamantium claws. And that makes her stop. She's like, claws? What about claws? This Wolvie, is this Patch or Logan? So she knows Logan. Speaking of, back to, there is the evil girl coming out of the crate. This is the girl that was in the mysterious kind of Raiders of the Lost Ark box earlier. Not the greatest drawing that Silvestri's ever done. You can tell it looks like he's kind of getting in a hurry or just not interested in this page. Again, it still looks pretty good, but it's kind of not the best. But she comes out and she's like, holy shit, I'm here to kick the shit out of you. I'm here for you specifically, Wolverine. And Wolverine says, must be open season on me down in Cyborgville. If old Pierce hadn't got terminated by a Sentinel in Uncanny X-Men 281, I'd say he was still processing them through his electrolyte vats. What are you, an off-brand? She says her name is spelled Cylla. I'm guessing Scylla? Scylla? And I'm Pierce's last little project. So anyway, she's like, I'm here to kick the shit out of you, and I'm super ready to kill you. That's what I'm here for. Back with a pretty awesome shot of Sunfire and Gambit kicking the shit out of ninjas. I was just looking at this cover shot of Gambit doing a kick, and it was kind of the same-ish pose right there. I gotta say, I don't remember how often I've seen Silvestri draw Gambit. When did that ever happen before? Is this the first time Silvestri's ever drawn Gambit? I kind of like his version. Silvestri gets it really well. But I like this shot. Again, if I had to say anything, like, this is probably not the best rendering Silvestri could ever do. But again, even at partial strength, Silvestri's shit looks great. I love the folds in the outfit. The guns look great. The action and the movement, even the subtle figures in the background. Love this shot of this of Gambit kicking, as they keep fighting these ninjas. It just great. He's just kicking in the air, kicking in the air. I'm liking Silvestri's Gambit a lot, actually. Back with Wolverine and this Sela girl. And she's super rapid fire slashing at him because she's a cyborg. So you got all these shots of her hands going really rapid fire, just chopping him up. And she's just having a great time. She's like, my onboard computer can track this stuff and get ahead of this before you can do anything. Like, I'm taking you out. There's no way that you're going to survive this. You fucking suck. You're done for. Meanwhile, the hand ninjas keep attacking, and Matsuo was down there just watching everything. He's like, I want Wolverine's head. Neatly wrapped in a picnic napkin. And so Sunfire and Gambit are standing there, and there's just more ninjas just swarming on them. You know, I know ninjas are kind of a cliche thing. They're just like pointless, soulless foot soldiers that are faceless, and you can just have infinite numbers of them, and you could slaughter them, and you don't feel bad. It's an easy out, but I don't fucking care. I think ninjas are cool at all times. There's very, very rare times when a ninja, even when they're just getting their asses kicked, are not kind of cool. But Sunfire and Gambit, they're like, well, I don't know. This is getting kind of rough. I don't know if we're going to be able to handle this. And Jubilee, now that she mentioned to this girl who was going to kill her that she knows Wolverine, this girl's like, I know him and I owe him. And so I'm going to let you go. And so she walks off, and then suddenly Yukio shows up. You all know this girl, right? She shows up. She's like, hey, I'm called Yukio, and any friend of Wolverine is a friend of mine. And Jubilee says, how come he doesn't know any plain girls in with frumpy taste in clothes? Don't answer that. So, okay. So we've got kind of the setup. Cyborg Girl's going to kill Wolverine. Jubilee's out there in Japan in the underworld kind of getting her ass potentially kicked and killed. So she's got to survive. And now Yukio's showing up to help out. Okay. That's issue 55. Artistically, it's, again, maybe not the best work Silvestri's ever done on the Wolverine title, but I still feel like it works. I do like the cover. Again, not his best, but it's fine. This cover, I like the composition of everything, but the rendering is a little bit not his best. It feels a little rushed. Don't love it, but don't hate it. It works, you know, the Silver Samurai up front, Mariko in between, trying to keep Wolverine separate from Silver Samurai himself. On sale twice a month. So in theory, the art's going to get a little bit more rushed. Is it? Probably. We'll see. But the fight continues with Wolverine. We see like through the girl Sela. God, I hope I'm saying it right. I just feel like I'm saying it wrong. Cylla. Sela. In fact, there's a thing that we'll see it on the other side. I think I'm saying it right. You'll see what I'm talking about. But we're seeing through her vision, because she's a cyborg, so we're seeing like the technological kind of vision. And he's like, back off, I'm not partial to slicing up on ladies. She's like, I don't give a shit. So she just keeps chopping at his ass, just keeps going at him. She's just out to kill him. You know, another crazy murderous villain for Wolverine to fight that has blades for weapons and hands or claws or something like that. That's what Wolverine likes to fight. That's what he gets. So she does this big super slice at him. Again, it's a good shot. It's compositionally, it's pretty great with Wolverine right up front and her slashing at him. But again, it feels rushed, but it has to be. This is the first issue of On Sale Twice a Month, so Silvestri's got to burn through this shit quickly. But not just Silvestri, but Dan Green has got to get the inks done, so their shit's got to go fast. But they're one of the art teams out there that when they're pressed for time, it's arguable that their work, it's not as refined as it can be, but it still works almost as good as anything they've ever done. Silvestri just has that ability. But the title for the book, when I'm talking about her name's Sela, but the title of the book is We Got Sela. Get it? We got Sela, but Godzilla? Can Mothra be far behind? It literally says that. We got Sela. Okay, I guess that's funny. So she slashes at him. Good shot. And again, she's just kind of an insane, cackling, crazy person. So Wolverine, not one to not use an opportunity whenever he finds one, picks up a fucking chainsaw, fires it up, and throws it at her. Love that shot of Wolverine bent over, all the good muscular kind of anatomy going on. Gets the chainsaw. Love that shot of him throwing it and the chainsaw itself flying at her. She easily deflects it, just smacks it away. Off it goes. No problem. Back with Gambit and Sunfire. The cops are getting out of the police station, and here we are with Gambit and Sunfire just kicking the shit out of Ninja still. It's kind of an interesting, weird pose for Sunfire up there in the air with the bent legs. Like, it's well drawn. I like it. But, that's an interesting shot. Again, I love Silvestri's Gambit. Let me bring it up close. I really like that face and the subtle kind of shadows on his facial features and that big, ridiculous poof ball hair of his. It's kind of a weird thing, but I like it. I think it works. So they're kicking the shit out of ninjas. And I'll read a comic book of superheroes slaughtering ninjas any day. Looks great. And they're having conversations back and forth. There's a lot of story going on. Love this shot, again, of awesome Gambit shit. I like how Silvestri draws Gambit, tossing his staff from one hand to the other, pulls out these cards, and then this shot of him throwing them and the energy of all these cards coming and the coloring, amping up the effect. Love it. Looks fantastic. Meanwhile, Matsuo is still outside watching all the cops come out, and he's like, what the hell is going on? You guys just got to go in there and chop off Wolverine's fucking head. What's the holdup? And they're like, well, it's the soldiers are like, it's not just Wolverine. There's a fucking there's a tall Gaijin and the mutant Ronin. And Matsuo's like, I knew that the X-Men Gambit was here, but what businesses of this is Sunfire's? These mutants are so clannish. Great shot of Sunfire just opening up a blast, boom, blowing away walls, blowing away ninjas. Love the coloring on this panel as it looks like the floor itself collapses out from under him. Again, Silvestri drawing rubble and debris and just organic shapes. I really, really like the drawing of this ninja right here in the middle. And again, the closer I bring it, it doesn't focus super great. It's a pretty small drawing. But this whole panel and all the random debris, the movement, the rocks and the rubble, great. Yeah, Sunfire blows a hole through the wall. Floors are collapsing. Back with Wolverine. We got to keep slicing people up. He's charging at her, and again, she's just like, I'm super fast, and just keeps stabbing the shit out of him. So Wolverine grabs onto her happy psycho ass and throws her face through some metal bars in the jail cell. Just sends her through it, and she's just laughing and cackling like it's great. Meanwhile, Matsuo's down in the car. He's like, I just found out where Wolverine is. He's in one of the back rooms. All of you fucking stupid cyber ninjas, get up there and go kill him. Who cares about Gambit and Sunfire? So, and again, these ninjas are interesting because they got freaking military hardware, guns and shit. And so this guy's like, hey, you heard him. Let's go. And this guy says, it shall be done, Lord. Brothers of the hand, our Jonin waxes impatient for his prize. So these two guys, again, I love the storytelling here, the subtleness of these guys. They get on these weapons or these claw things to hold in between their fingers to climb up the wall. And but the one soldier's like, hey guys, he's impatient, go kill Wolverine. So these two have a little private conversation. This one guy says, Matsuo wants to make a teacup from the Gaijin skull. And this ninja says, well, then he shall have it. And the first ninja says, if you ask me, a teacup for a right hand is a bad trade. And this guy says, if Matsuo heard that, he'd have your liver. And so the other guy says, you wouldn't report me, would you? And this guy says, no, just follow me. Like, what the fuck kind of conversation is this for these ninjas to be happening? Is this just Larry Hama just trying to fill in some characterization on ninjas and throw a little humor in there? It feels a little out of place, but I guess it doesn't matter. But as we see this, again, a great shot of Gambit and Sunfire still in the middle of the battle, but these two guys who are climbing up the wall, they're just scaling the wall. It feels like it's almost like a curve, but they're in a freaking police station, so who cares? They're going to just slip past these two dummies to go get Wolverine. Speaking of which, great shot of her kicking Wolverine across the face. And the twisting of this figure, Wolverine's head angled back in that position, his back anatomy and his muscles on his arms. Again, it's not the best drawing ever, but the movement, the pose, the gesture works great. So here she comes again, jumping, claws out. As she jumps, she does a double foot stomp on Wolverine's face into the ground, and she just keeps telling him to shut up, and get up. She says, I got a lot of fight that I still want to get out of you, and I want to get it all. So again, she's just a psycho cuckoo clock. Meanwhile, here's another great shot of Silvestri, like it's kind of an overhead shot looking down, as Gambit and Sunfire keep fighting ninjas, and the two sneaky ones crawling across the roof. And Gambit's like, these ninjas are creeping past us across the ceiling. And so Sunfire, in this great shot, he says, they make a reference to how they're like cockroaches skittering about. And Sunfire's like, annoying, disgusting creatures, easily swatted. So he shoots up and blows a hole through the ceiling. Now, I'm just going to guess Sunfire killed these two guys. So it all comes down to, what the fuck was the point of this little back and forth conversation between these ninja with a little humor? Like, I guess you could add some humor and characterization and humanity to them, but ninja aren't humans. They're like soulless monsters in a way. Like, they could be anything. I don't fucking care. But it's just weird to make them characters just to have Sunfire vaporize their asses. And Matsuo was like, is that an earthquake? Like, no, it was Sunfire. He blew a hole through the ceiling. And Gambit's like, dude, you're going to fucking level this building. Like, you're going to bring everything down on top of us. But they took out the ninja. So the building is actually collapsing. So they're like, we got to run, we got to hide, we got to get to some structural sound area of the building before it collapses on all of us. Meanwhile, the ninja, I love this shot of these ninja running out of the smoke. They're just kind of like dark upper bodies, and then it kind of like cross hatches out into some basic lines as they kind of fade into the smoke in the background. And Matsuo, looking from his car, he's like, Jesus Christ, if I'd known that this simple surgical strike was going to escalate to this level, I would have just blown up the building in the first place. Get me out of here. So Matsuo takes off as the destroyed rubble of the building collapses down, and Wolverine and the crazy girl, they're still up, they're still going, of course. So, but Wolverine, you know, he's ready to keep going, but then Gambit and Sunfire, they're right there. Great shot. Love the awesome heroic pose of both of them. I'm not sure what's going on with the color tone on their faces. Good Lord, is that a weird color choice? It's probably just a mistake. But Psycho Killer Girl, she's like, all right, that's too many people. So she jumps, tucks and rolls, and vanishes and is gone. She's like, I'll be back to get you later. And Sunfire says there's nowhere for someone like her to hide in Tokyo. Gambit's like, we got to chase her down. And Wolverine's like, forget her. We came to find Jubilee. We got to go find her. What the hell is going on? Again, coloring mistake. What the hell is going on with Gambit's face? And Sunfire. It just has to be a goof up. I'm certain that's not. I mean, look at the flesh tone on Wolverine. You know, that's just a goof up. But again, really, really liking Silvestri's Gambit. He's got a knack for him. I'm trying to think if I've ever seen Silvestri do Gambit ever. Before this or after this. I don't think it ever happened. But anyway, we're after Jubilee. Anyway, back with Jubilee. The psycho poison girl let her go, but now Jubilee's with Yukio, and they have a little kind of conversation back and forth. And Jubilee's like, wow, nice place. And Yukio's like, yeah, you don't got to pretend this place fucking sucks. She's like, so what's your problem? You got a crush on Logan or something like that? And Jubilee's like, well, what's your problem? I bet you and him used to have a thing, but now he's not with you now, is he? And she just kind of smiles and is like, let's talk about something else. So they decide that, like, all right, they see that the cop cars are running, so they understand there's something crazy going on, probably involving Wolverine. We should go down and help. And so she opens up a crate. She's like, you need a weapon of any type? With all these sais and swords and stars and all kinds of shit. And Jubilee just like cracks her little energy. She's like, I'm already packing. Meanwhile, back with the girl who was supposed to kill Jubilee and how she let her go, betrayed the hand. And so she's like, you make the hand angry. You know that you're not going to survive, right? And so the girl's trying to like, can I stow away on your boat to get out of town? And this guy's like, well, what do you got? You made the hand angry. That's a dangerous proposition. What do you got for me? And she's like, I got some trinkets and gold. And the guy's like, this is a bunch of garbage. This is nothing. And so the guy's like, you know what? That sucks. If you had enough cash, I'd have let you slide onto my boat. But times are tough, kid, and business is business. She's all yours, boys. And she's like, I thought you weren't connected to the hand. So it looks like she's getting herself in trouble. Again, look at the center shot of this guy's face. That is a very sketchy, scratchy drawing. So, like, again, this stuff has to be banged out in, just a couple of weeks. If these 2 issues on sale in 1 month, it's crazy how they can keep up with it. And you got to draw a pain in the ass scene of like docks and a boat and all the gear and stuff around there. What a pain in the ass that would be. But yeah, so freaking Hydra. This guy hands over this girl to Hydra agents. Again, it's not the greatest drawing Silvestri's ever done in terms of the finish, but still the quick, like his gestural sketches. I love the poses on them all, and this crazy weird gun looks great. And the girl's like, all right, well, so she pulls out her weapon, starts slicing the shit out of everybody because her knife is coated with blowfish toxin, so it kills everybody. And there's a mysterious leader of the Hydra here. And so there's some other characters showing up in the story that is going to show themselves here soon enough. There's just more characters coming along. But this guy, he's like, well, we got to capture this girl. We can't let her go. The hand want her. So he gets out these chains and ball things and wraps her up, holds her together, like, we're going to gift wrap her for the hand. And then the mysterious leader of Hydra reveals herself to be Silver Fox. Everyone remember her? She was way more interesting when she was a girl that Wolverine actually fell in love with and then was murdered by Sabretooth. But now she's still alive like everyone, and now she's the leader of Hydra or some shit. So we had Yukio, who Wolverine used to fuck. We have Silver Fox, who Wolverine used to fuck. We have Mariko in the book, who Wolverine used to fuck. Wolverine gets around. Watch out, Jubilee. Anyway, back with Jubilee and Yukio. They're looking around. They see all the destruction from the police station where Wolverine was at. And they look and notice the Matsuo's car. And Yukio's like, I know what that car is. More ninjas drop down to talk with Matsuo. And, they're all, like, Sunfire is involved. The American brat has got away, Jubilee. So things kind of suck. That's a really interesting kind of rendered drawing there. But again, you can see the speed with which that Silvestri is trying to blast through these pages. And Dan Green is inking them. That's very quick, sketchy stuff, but the shadowing still works. Back with Wolverine, Sunfire, and Gambit. Wolverine's on his bike. Gambit's drawing the cab that had the roof cut off. They're taking off. I like this shot. It looks good, especially Sunfire, that flying shot. But Wolverine and Gambit are trying to go find Jubilee, and Sunfire tries to stop them. He's like, you guys show up in my country, you destroy government buildings, and think you're just going to ride off and just not pay for the shit that you guys have done? Sunfire lands in front of him and says somebody has to take responsibility. So Wolverine stops, gets off his bike, gets in Sunfire's face, puts his finger in his chest and says, you're the one who unleashed the mega bolts and trashed the place, who asked for your help in the first place. And Sunfire's just like quiet. He just flies away. He's like, we'll settle this later. They're like, yeah, sure. I'm certain of that. Meanwhile, back with Mariko, she's got with her Yashida clan, and she's doing some business dealings. And the Silver Samurai shows up, and he's there. He's after something. He says, I have come to save the Yashidas from the hand. Name me clan leader, and it shall be run as it should be run by a man. That's right, my king. Just kidding, guys. She's like, I'm not buckling under the hand. I am simply trying to fulfill my promise to divest the clan of underworld holdings. And Silver Samurai says, a promise to whom? And then from off panel, a voice says, that's a personal question, bub. And there is shirtless Wolverine. And Wolverine's like, is this girl giving you a hassle, Mariko? If he is, I'm going to have to take his sword away from him and spank him with it. And Silver Samurai gets in his face. He's like, you dare defame my invincible black blade? Wolverine says, that Snickersnee, what the fuck is that? Can cut through everything except adamantium, bub, and don't you forget it. So then Mariko gets in between them. She's like, God damn it, will you two not try to just shed each other's blood everywhere in my house. Fucking stop. Meanwhile, one of Mariko's helpers says, alarms, ninjas, the hand has us surrounded. Oh shit. And there's Matsuo. He showed up with his weird goofball hair. And they're sitting here outside ready to charge into the Yoshida compound here. And the ninjas are saying, we are sending an envoy with your ultimatum, Lord. Is there any personal message you would like to include? Matsuo says, tell Mariko that I know her will has been sapped by her stupid promise to the Gaijin. She might as well come crawling out with her nape of her neck extended for the beheading cut. It's interesting. There's even a little signature of Marc and Dan on that panel right there. That's interesting. And as that's going on, there's Yukio and Jubilee. And Jubilee's like, what the hell's going on? Who lives here? And Yukio's like, don't you know? That's the home of Wolverine's true love. And she's like, what? Who? What? Because Jubilee doesn't know a lot about Wolverine's history. So anyway, it's all coming to a head. We're all getting to the final moment. Now the cover, it's a little ominous. There's Wolverine holding Mariko. Now, if you've read the original stories where Wolverine kind of got with her, it's really kind of, I like it. They've had a couple of characters that Wolverine's really been in love with. Silver Fox was one. Mariko's kind of the other big one. Of course, he's always in love with Jim. I almost said Jim Lee. Jesus Christ. Jean Grey. The fuck? And this is kind of ominous and scary. Like, what's going on here? Is Larry Hama going to wrap up a story point that Claremont started? Again, not the greatest rendering, the finesse and detail that Silvestri can put into his art, because again, they're banging these shits out quick, but the feeling is there. And you can have rough, not great art, but if the feeling is portrayed, you can kind of get away with a lot, honestly. So we just jump right into it. That's not a bad opening page. Like, that looks pretty damn good. Love Wolverine stabbing the fucking piss out of the ninja. I like that the extended kind of like in the back of the clothing on the ninja here, the 3 claws sticking up. That looks awesome. The anatomy on Wolverine is great. I love they can show Wolverine freaking murdering people. Again, these are ninjas. They're kind of soulless, faceless nobodies. You could say they're demons or whatever the fuck, or they're just people. They could be anything. You kill them, they evaporate into a cloud of smoke, or they could bleed to death. Who cares? They're ninja. We're not concerned about it. But Silver Samurai, Wolverine, and Gambit are all fighting these ninja, trying to protect Yashida. Clan Yashida, Mariko. Penciler Marc Silvestri. It's got Green, Milgram, and Rubenstein as inkers. So they must be having to we're getting down to the wire here. And again, this is Silvestri's last issue before he goes over to Image Comics and does Cyberforce. And it's interesting. I was talking about at the beginning of the video here where I was looking for connective tissue, of the art looking like the way he would do things in Cyberforce. And it's kind of there, bigger images, but not as much as I kind of thought that I would. I feel like he really changed things up over at Image on his Cyberforce. But anyway, everyone's fighting ninja. There's Wolverine. There's Gambit jumping through the air, kicking again. Mariko, she's got a weapon out. They're all fighting, and they're like, we have to fall back within the mansion. There's just too many of them. This is too much. We got to go back inside. And the mansion, Mariko make sure to tell them that it's a deadly mansion. Like, there's booby traps everywhere. Like, these planks from the floor with spikes coming up, stabbing ninjas in the guts. Meanwhile, as ninjas charge off, there's Matsuo, and he's chatting it up with, there's Silver Fox with Hydra. Just so goddamn many characters showing up. There's Jubilee and Yukio watching. So there's so many characters. It's kind of unnecessarily complicated with all these extra characters going along. I did find this part really interesting. This scene always sat with me as scary. Like, Gambit's cruising through here, and he's like, we're looking, and he says, razor blades embedded in the walls of a maze? That sounds scary, because you get distracted and you bump into the wall, and there's razor blades all over. That'll cut you up. But Gambit says, I'm not so impressed, Wolverine. One just has to be careful. And Wolverine says, well, yeah, that being careful part ain't so easy when they turn out the lights and let loose starving dogs. I'm like, oh my God, what a horrible way to go. That sounds like an absolute nightmare. So they get to the center part of the mansion. They're going to hang out there. And Mariko says, excuse us, please. Logan and I have important matters to discuss in the privacy of the chapel. And Silver Samurai says, I don't like this. And Gambit says, well, that's why they're doing it. I bet you Wolverine and Mariko are going to go back to the chapel and like fuck for the last time. They don't know it's the last time. But, I mean, why not, right? They're in love and they haven't been together in a minute. Like Wolverine's like, hey, we got like 5 minutes. That's twice as much as I need. I promise we can get there. So, but they actually have a real conversation, of course. And she's like, have you returned to shame me? After all this time, I have not yet succeeded in divesting the Yashida clan of its underworld holdings. I am dishonored. And Wolverine's like, there's no dishonor. Things happen. That's all. And she says, I am so very close to accomplishing my task, to cleanse my clan so that I may be worthy. It is so complicated, so many families within the clan, and I am responsible for their well-being. And Wolverine says, because Mariko's over here unpacking a box as she's talking about how she's trying to make her clan worthy, therefore she could be worthy, and then maybe she could still be with him. But as she unpacks this box, Wolverine says to her, I know what that is you're unpacking. I haven't seen that set of colors in a while. Gave them up, Mariko. And she says, perhaps it is fitting for you to wear them again to serve the honor of the Yashida clan. And she's holding his old school brown and tan costume. And I love that one above all the others. I do not like the yellow one. It's fine. It looks good. It's, a classic design. But the brown and tan, the John Byrne design, it is the premier Wolverine outfit. And in Wolverine issue 50, he flipped over to the yellow costume and has essentially stayed in it ever since, But she's got it here, and they're like, all right, for one last time, let's throw on the old outfit. So Matsuo cuts back to Silver Fox, who has the poison girl, the blind poison girl. He's like, I want to choke her out personally, but the guy with the chain and the spike ball, he's like, hey, you don't get to touch her until you pay for that shit. And Matsuo's got like a robotic hand. I'm pretty sure he lost that hand to Wolverine in one of the issues of X-Men. So now he fires off that robotic hand to choke out the guy. He's like, don't touch me. I'm a badass. Don't touch me. Meanwhile, back with Yukio and Jubilee, they want to get down and they want to get involved. So they're up on a roof. They have to jump on some power lines. And Jubilee's like, is this safe? She's like, just don't ground yourself. So they go zipping down. It is interesting. There's a little fucking arrow telling you to go from this panel here and from this panel here down over to here first before you go to here. I wonder if Silvestri drew that in there. That's interesting. They have to tell you, because I could see how you could maybe go from there to there to there. But they direct you. Simple drawings, simple black shapes. Love the silhouettes of them zipping down the line. But they've zipped over there. They're on the roof. I guess there's a reason for Jubilee and Yukio to be involved in this story. Meanwhile, Silver Samurai's there. He's like, hey, men of the Yashida clan, have you no shame that you allow yourselves to be led by a mere woman? Hell yeah, my king. Just kidding, guys. She's like, she has never proven her honor. She has never cut off a finger in atonement for her complicity in the death of Shingen. She was even betrothed to Shingen's killer. I've agreed to this embarrassment long enough. And Gambit shows up and sticks his staff in Silver Samurai's chest. Gambit's kind of a ballsy badass. Well, and Gambit says, the man isn't even here to defend himself from your slurs, talking about Wolverine. And there he is. He's in his classic brown and tan. And I remember looking at that going, God, I hope he stays in this costume. I'm not a fan of the yellow one. A little bit more kind of care to the inking in this. I can't tell if that's Dan Green, because it said that there were 3 different inkers on here. But it looks like a little bit more time was taken on this one. But Wolverine's there. He's in his outfit. And again, we have problems we need to deal with. The guys are like, holy shit, there's another person has entered the mansion. Who is it? And it's like, it's the blind poison girl. She's walking through the razor blade maze and the lights are out, but they're like, remember, lights are out, but she's blind anyway. So back with Silver Fox and Matsuo, now they're in the freaking limo again, drinking wine, and they're talking. It says, I understand Rico, Reiko, that's blind stabby girl, bloodying her sword for us to buy her eyes back, but isn't she under obligation to Wolverine? And Silver Fox says she doesn't know about his relationship to Mariko. And so while they're talking about her, the girl is in the place, like Wolverine was saying, when the lights are out and there's razor blades in the wall, but she's blind anyway, so she's using her stick to kind of tap along the walls, and then a pack of starving dogs comes running out, but she's kind of a badass. She just slices at the dogs with her weapon, and she's able to take them out. So she's on her way to go kill. Back again with Jubilee and Yukio. They see, here's that Sela girl. She showed back up. Goddamn, everybody's showing up. And there's a bunch of chicks, which I'm fine with. Like, I'm not saying that as a complaint. I'm just kind of joking around. But Jubilee, Yukio, Silver Fox, Mariko, Sela. Who else am I missing? It just feels like Wolverine's always surrounded by hot chicks. But crazy stabby girl, she's there. She's going to show up. She's got I got to finish killing Wolverine. Of course. So she goes diving at Jubilee. Yukio pulls her out of the way as crazy stabby girl goes crashing through the roof and then just happens to bust a hole right above where Wolverine and Gambit are. They're like, oh shit, it's that crazy cyborg killer. We got to get you up there. And Wolverine's like, well, we don't know who's coming through the maze, because they know that somebody's coming through the maze. They don't know that it's the girl. But Wolverine's like, I can't leave Mariko. And Gambit's like, I'll look after Mariko. Go save the girls up on the roof. I'll give you a boost. Now, for the one and one time only, I'm going to say, look at that drawing of Gambit by Silvestri. Holy Christ, does that suck compared to what Silvestri can do. That is just awful. But again, they're busting through these issues fast as can be. So Gambit's going to get Wolverine up to the roof. How does he do it? He charges up a card, I guess. He charges up something. Once again, there's a little arrow pointing you down to show you what panel you go to next. But Gambit uses his powers to create an explosive charge boost to send Wolverine up through the roof to take on weird stabby girl. That's a weird use of his powers. Again, it's kind of like decent poses on the Wolverine character here, but the inking and the finish is just, it's getting rough, guys. It's getting pretty damn rough. Meanwhile, back with Poison Girl, she made her way through the maze, and they're like, Silver Samurai and Gambit are like, this is who made it through the maze, this girl? And Mariko shows up, and Stabby Girl says, I have a message from Matsuo. Matsuo offers to buy out Yashida clan's underworld holdings at fair market value, and he will dissolve those holdings so that Mariko will not be profiting from Vice. And Mariko says, that is a generous offer. It allows me to fulfill my vow to divest without financially ruining the families of my clan. What does Matsuo want in return? And she says, he wants you to make atonement in the manner of the Yakuza. He wants one of your fingers. And she offers up a weapon that she's carrying. So, okay, Mariko thinks she has a way out. She can finally do the thing that she's been trying to do since long time ago. Make her clan honorable so she can go about her life. And Matsuo says, okay, I'll buy you out at fair market price, but all you got to do in the manner of the Yakuza, you owe us a finger. Anyway, Wolverine's back up on the roof with crazy stabby girl. They keep going at it, stabbing the shit out of each other. Back in the room, the debris is falling down from the fight on the roof. And Gambit's like, this is barbaric. And Gambit is yelling up to the roof. He says, come back down here and stop them. And Poison Girl, she's like, who are you speaking to? Silver Samurai says, you were told that is none of your concern. And then Silver Samurai comes up and takes the weapon away from Poison Girl and says, is this the blade that Matsuo offers for the finger cutting? And she says it is a Muramasa Tanto, a worthy blade. And so Silver Samurai holds it back up in front of her and says, how do we know it isn't poison? Does he think we're all a bunch of fucking idiots? So she takes the weapon from him. She says that's beside the point, but she puts her hand down on the ground and stabs herself with this weapon. She says, would I do this with sullied steel? She says, now, Mariko, it is your turn. So the whole point, Mariko cuts off a finger and all her problems will go away. Back up on the roof, Wolverine and Stabby Girl are still going at it. And while this is going on, Jubilee throws some fireworks to blind her. And she goes tumbling over Wolverine, over the edge, as if to fall to her potential death. Probably not. She grabs onto the edge of the roof and is barely hanging on. Cut back to Mariko pulls the weapon out of Poison Girl's hand, and she says, all right, it is time for Mariko Yashida to make things right for all those who have put their trust in her. And back with Matsuo and Silver Fox. Matsuo is saying, I see that Wolverine has been distracted from the main event with the poisoned blade, because I see that Wolverine's up here fighting with crazy Stabby Girl. And Silver Fox says, yes, I arranged that. Oh shit. Gambit's over here is like, you can't let her. And Silver Samurai's like, she has to do this. Back to Matsuo. He's like, am I missing something? Won't they demand the blade be tested first? And Silver Fox says, Poison Girl has been gradually ingesting minutely larger doses of the toxin for years. She's quite immune. And just at that moment, we cut back to Mariko just barely cuts herself on the finger with the knife, and she says it burns like white fire running up my veins, and they're like blowfish toxin. So this was all the plan. They're going to kill her, and they're going to have her poison herself, and the whole point is to just fuck up Wolverine, take her out, make her clan easy to take over. But Mariko's screaming. Wolverine's like, holy shit, what the hell? I hear her. Yukio says, Logan, go to her. Jubilee and I will deal with the weird, crazy Stabby Girl. Wolverine jumps back down, and Mariko's like, Wolverine, take me to the chapel. And then Poison Girl, she hears Mariko say that Logan is Mariko's beloved because Poison Girl owes Logan a life debt, essentially. But she just realizes that she just inadvertently poisoned Logan's beloved. And back with Matsuo, he's like, well, how do you plan to get Poison Girl out of there? And Silver Fox is like, that problem's probably solving itself right now. Poison Girl, she's so upset that she killed Wolverine's true love. She grabs Silver Samurai's knife and stabs herself to kill herself. Back with Wolverine and Mariko, she says, I am poisoned, my beloved. Wolverine says, I got to get you to the hospital, get the antidote. She says, there is none. Just take me to the hospital. And here's where the emotion kind of ramps up a little bit. There's this classic shot of Wolverine and her, Mariko, from this like classic shot that has been established in previous issues of X-Men. And so now that they're off privately, Mariko's saying, this is a horrible enough death. It should not be a public spectacle. She says, Logan, I ask of you one final thing. I have fulfilled my vow. I have divested the clan, even if the hand delved into treachery. I have upheld my end. I would have been free to marry you. And she says, but aren't we married in our hearts? Have we not paid a dowry in blood and pain and loneliness? Isn't the most sacred vow the one we carry in the core of our souls? And so this close-up shot of Wolverine, he's like, what are you asking of me? She says, spare me the final agonies. Release my soul while it still sings with my love for you. Use your claws, my beloved. And Wolverine's like, I can't do that. She's begging him to kill her so she won't suffer the pain of this poison. And she's like, just let me go and let it be. If it's to be by anyone's hand, let it be by yours. And he's like, I can't do that. I can't do that. Back with Stabby Girl and Jubilee and Yukio, they fight, they throw things at her, they electrocute the shit out of her. She, zaps, she falls to the ground, and Stabby Girl is still limping away, but she's done. Like, we're done with her. I'm done with her too. I've had enough. Back with Wolverine, you hear the sound of Wolverine's claws. Silver Samurai and Gambit look, and it just ends with Wolverine holding what is presumably the dead body of Mariko. And this is shit that's been set up since, like, this is 1992. This comic is 92. I want to say that these storylines were set up in the early 80s. Some of you can kind of tell me when these were set up. Now, I missed all of those stories for the most part, but I understand the relationships that were going on here with Wolverine and this character. And this is like the love of his life. You could say it was Silver Fox. Yeah, but this is the one that was like still alive and still like the true human being that she always was. She didn't turn into an evil bad guy like Silver Fox or some shit like that. And she was, of course, drama in storytelling. You want people to be in love and you want them to be together, but then you throw something in the way that keeps them from being together, up to and including death. And so the implication is that he used his claws to kill her. I don't know if he stabbed her somewhere in the guts. I don't know. But Wolverine killed the love of his life to spare her the agony of dying. This is an extremely rough drawing. Look at the sketchy lines on the lower legs there. Like, this was Silvestri's last piece of Marvel art before he went off to Image Comics. And again, it's rough, it's sketchy. These are books twice a month, but it works. You know, again, like I said, if you get the emotion correct and the feeling correct, you're kind of on board with it. I'm kind of like, you know what, it works even if it's a far cry from the best that Silvestri can do. But in terms of characters, Wolverine, you know, the love of his life, one of many, I guess, but the one who is still alive, the one he could still be with. He could never be with Silver Fox. He could never be with Jean Grey, but he could have been with this girl. And she really, really loves him and she wants to be with him. But of course, through treachery, she has to die. And that's it. So I actually don't remember. I was going to say I stopped collecting Wolverine, but I did, because I did pick up the issues that Tex drew. But I don't remember how Wolverine kind of reacted to this. I'm sure it was not glossed over. I don't know. I can't remember what happens. But she's gone. I have no idea the status of Mariko Yashida as a character. This is 92. I have to imagine they brought her back to life, because that's what happens. No one ever stays dead, right? But I feel like it was kind of a reasonably emotional ending. It works. I'm kind of fine with it. And in terms of Silvestri wrapping up his Marvel work, he goes off to draw Cyberforce. Unless I'm missing something. I mean, I read it up. This is his last issue, and then it's off to Cyberforce, because this is April of 92, it says. No, sorry, July of 92. So it's not too much longer before Cyberforce comes out. So, all in all, again, not the best work that Silvestri's capable of doing, but just to repeat myself again, as I always do, even when Silvestri's not at his best, he's still better than most. And I always liked these Wolverine stories. I like the character. Wolverine's arguably my favorite character in all of Marvel Comics. It's good stuff. I enjoy it. And so I don't know. I guess that's all I've got. Nothing else to say. This is it. Silvestri's done. Off to Cyberforce he goes. But his art changes forever. He's never inked by Dan Green again. All the years they spent together in this defining kind of awesome, beautiful artwork that they created together, we never see it again. I always wondered why Silvestri didn't have Dan Green come with them. I just kind of assumed they had a good working relationship because they worked together forever. And I just, in my mind, I think of it like Jim Lee and Scott Williams. Like, Scott Williams came and inked fucking everybody, but mainly Jim Lee, right? I wondered if there's any scenario of like, hey, Dan Green, do you want to come ink me over at Image Comics? Or if maybe Silvestri was like, it's time to change up my art and make it what is becoming more popular, and get Scott Williams to ink them, and then other great inkers come along, Matt Banning, Joseph Weems, Jason Gorder, all these great inkers come along. But I just wonder if there's any scenario where they ever thought about, hey, Dan Green, come ink me. But it didn't happen. And so this great era of Silvestri Dan Green art is done with these issues right here. So I don't know. That's all I've got to say. Nothing else to add. Fun stuff. I like it. Silvestri is one of my absolute favorite artists ever. So I don't know. What did you guys think of this stuff? I guess that's all I've got for now. So as always, thank you for joining me. I really appreciate it. I'll see you next time.